Hello everyone, welcome again. It's Scott Monkern with another review. This time we're going to do The Bloody Inn. It's a game that's been out for a while, probably about a year or so. It's actually out in Europe a little bit longer. It's a very controversial game because of its theme matter. Let's go ahead and talk about The Bloody Inn. So The Bloody Inn is a hand management card game and a resource management card game in some respects, centered around some historical events in 1830s France. Now, the events we're talking about is there was a hotel where people would check into the hotel, and the staff of the hotel would kill the people, steal their bodies, and bury them. Someone jokingly, we were talking about it yesterday, would say, well, that's happened other places as well. Yeah, this one's a fairly significant event for French history, and it happened for quite some period of time, apparently. So, we are all playing staff members of the hotel. We're killing bodies, robbing them, and burying them, and the idea is to get as much money as you can, and the person who gets the most money wins. So let's talk a little bit about the components in the game. By the way, I've never done a components section before because I've normally done unboxings in previous videos, but I didn't do an unboxing for this one. So let's talk about the components in this game. First of all, the biggest thing is we have a player mat here. Not a player mat, a scoreboard here. This is used to track player points. In this case, they're called French francs, money. And so we've got that. It's nice hard cardboard, really easy to use. And then at the end of it is a deck for the peasant cards, which when you play the game you learn about what those are for. And then there are lots and lots of little cardboard tokens. There's these are $10 French francs. They have kind of a stopgap mechanic to prevent overrun or overflow, where if you get too much money you have to spend one turn, which by the way in this game one turn is a lot, to turn in money so you can continue to earn money. We have these chips. They've got keys on one side and they've got little, here you can see them, beer mugs and bread trays on the other. Is that a beer mug? It looks like it's kind of funny. Should have been a wine glass. We're set in France. But it's a beer mug. And those are used for marking rooms that are, quote, ours for purposes of scoring. One way, we've got little wood tokens, which are used for player markings. We've got one for each color. So we've got green, blue, yellow, and red. And then we've got some gray markers. These are for what we call neutral rooms. So not big, not high on the components in terms of cardboard. But we do have, in addition to that, cards. Here are the cards. They are pretty. They're double-sided, actually, which is on one side we have a picture of a hotel guest. In this case, this is the major, and he's right there. And then on the back we have a coffin with a number on it. That tells you if you kill him, one, how much it costs to bury him, and also at the bottom, right here, you'll see how much you get. So this guy, if you kill him and you bury his body, you get 26 tokens, or 26 francs. That's a lot in this game, by the way. So the cards. Now, cardboard tokens are great. The board is great. The cards are beautiful. We'll talk about the art in a little bit. My only complaint from a component perspective is you'll notice here this is sleeved. I've sleeved all the cards because I'm not sure how long this game is going to be in print. And I use the standard Dragon Shield sleeves, and the cards don't literally just fit right to the top. I'm kind of surprised by that. They're a little bit oversized. I don't quite know why. I'm probably going to have to find different sleeves for them. That was my only complaint, is standard sleeving didn't work for them. So let's talk about the art. I'll start by saying I really like the art in this particular game. Here's an example. Mostly, the chips, the cardboard chips, and the scoring mat have art on them. Not terribly exciting. I hadn't noticed before the fact that you have a beer mug instead of a wine glass, and it's a French game, which is kind of bizarre. You do have the loaf of bread, which is common. Now, the art on the cards is like this. Let's see if we can get a little bit closer so you can see it. It definitely has kind of that Art Deco, Art Nouveau, in this case, kind of modern art look that you think about in terms of European games from that era, from the 1830s to not the games, but the European art from that era you see here. Kind of reminds me of Picasso's work as well, which is obviously much later than that, but that's kind of what it reminds me of. It reminds me a lot of, in terms of art, the game Mysterium. If you've played Mysterium, and I'll probably do a review of it eventually, the art isn't quite the same in terms of its style, and I'm not an art expert by any stretch of the imagination. But it's very unusual and very evocative. So yeah, definitely unusual art. Very, very. I mean, I really like it. I think it really gives that French kind of nouveau kind of thing, kind of look to it. Now, I talked about a previous game where the iconography and the rule sets on the cards and the art mixed, and they did a really good job here. I've noticed you got the art on the top of the card here, you got some icons here which have meaning, which we'll talk about, and then you'll have here instructions at the bottom of the card. Notice the art does not interfere with the instructions on the card. So they did a really good job of that in this case. So that's the art. Really, really nice art. Really like it. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the rulebook. Rulebook instead of manual, getting over that tech industry thing. So here's the rulebook. It is very short. It is 8 pages long, and the last page right here, and actually even the page before, you'll see starting right here, is a list of all the characters in game. And so really when you talk about the actual instructions, 6 pages long, which I'm really glad to see. I like short instructions. The beginning, first thing it has, components list. They call it contents. So got the components list. Very, very good. Got some decent pictures. The rules are relatively easy to understand. It basically starts out by saying, here's what the cards are. They're only one type of card, really, realistically, and so tells you what the cards are and what they mean and all the various pieces of them. Then it shows you the scoring board and what it does. And then it talks about here's how you do stuff up. It talks about setup, and then it gets into playing the game. Very straightforward, really, really easy to learn. I picked this one up pretty quickly, and I thought the instructions were really good. In addition to that, player aid cards right here, right there. There's a player aid card. It tells you the 2 phases of your turn, which is welcome to the 2 phases of the game round, which is welcome to travelers, and then player actions. Each person gets 2 actions, and it tells you what all the actions are, so you can remember them. So you got a nice player aid. It also, interestingly, they did a really good job here, which is not only is this a player aid, but when you play the game, you need annexes to bury bodies, and this player aid serves as your first annex, and you get it for free as part of the game. So they've done a really good job of mixing a player aid with an actual game component. This is used in game as your first annex, and on the back you have to make a deck based upon your number of players, and this tells you how to make the deck. So it tells you, okay, we're playing with 3 to 4 players, you want 26 total cards in the deck, and it doesn't make any difference what 26 cards are, you select them at random. So that's it. So really, really good manual, short, to the point, has a components list, player aid cards, with a unique fact that the player aid cards are not only a player aid card, they're also used in the game. So A+ for the rulebook. So let's talk a little bit about the theme. Now, the theme of this game is, and I mentioned this in the beginning of the video, which is it's that we are staff of a hotel in early 19th century, maybe early to mid 19th century France, depending on what you consider 1830, where we are killing hotel guests and burying them while trying to avoid the police, and also recruiting other people to help us go through the killing, because we can't always do it by ourselves. And so the theme and the game are very, very tightly tied to each other. I can't see how, if you took away this theme, whether the game it would still be a good hand management resource game. We could probably paste another theme on it, but it's pretty tightly, it's definitely tightly tied together, and you find yourself thinking about killing the bodies and thinking about the way to get compatriots and colleagues to help you kill the bodies, and oh my goodness, where am I going to bury the bodies, so on and so forth. So I think the theming is excellent, provided you're okay with the theme. Another reviewer that I'm very, very fond of in terms of his review played this game, and he was mostly okay with the theme, but the person he was playing with was very troubled by the theme because it's random killing. And so be prepared. It's kind of interesting because I do a local gaming night where I do demos and stuff in my friendly local gaming store. And if anybody, I always have it in my bag of tricks. And if anybody in the group has had a particularly bad day at work or whatever, this is the first game that always comes out, because it's just something really kind of refreshing about, oh, I've had a bad day, let me kill a few people. kind of a twisted sense of humor, but you have to have that twisted sense of humor. So A+4 theme, provided you're okay with the theme and what it represents. Okay, so let's talk about playing the game and how playing the game works. So the setup is pretty straightforward. Basically, you set out the scoring mat. You give each player a token, a scoring token, which they put on the scoring mat. They get 2 peasant cards, which are kind of the level 0 compatriots. And you then, at the beginning of each turn, the first thing you do is what they call welcome the guests. And there are 8 slots on the board. You draw off the deck 8 guests, and you put each of them in a room. Now, each person has a room they start off with that they're, quote, responsible for. It doesn't dictate who you can kill. You get bonus points, actually, if the guest in your room is alive at the end of the round. So you welcome all the guests, then starting with the first player, the first player gets 2 actions. Their action list is relatively short, and the nice thing is the player aids has the list of them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 actions, well, 5 actions if you include passing. First thing is you can bribe a guest. You pay a specific number of francs indicated on the card, and you can put them into your hand. You're going to need to do that, which is kind of interesting because you're in this constant quandary of, do I kill a guest and take their money, or do I bribe a guest, pay them money, and put them into my hand for use in a later one? So you can bribe a guest. That's one action. You can build an annex. You can take most of the cards in your hand that are people and essentially have them build a building. So we've got churches, we have all sorts of, they have a whole government buildings, you have all sorts of different buildings. The reason why you build annexes is you use them to bury the bodies. So you bury the bodies. Then you also have kill a guest. Obviously that's the most popular one. You can kill someone. You have to, now the way money works with respect to that, the way all purchases work with inside the game is cards. So if you look here, give you an example here. Here is the representative, right here, and you will notice that he has the number 1 there. That means if I want to bribe him and put him in my deck, I have to discard 1 card. So let's say this is the very beginning of the game. I start with 2 peasants, I discard a peasant, and I put him in my hand as a replacement. So I can discard for 1. Now there are some cards that cost 0. This one happens to cost 1. So it costs 1 to bribe him and turn him into my thing. It also costs me 1 to turn him into an annex. So if I wanted to convert him into an annex and put him down so I could bury bodies in his building, I could do that. If I wanted to kill him, it costs 1 card. So that's kind of one of the neat things about the mechanics are is that there's 1 number on the card. If you want to bribe someone, kill someone, or turn them into an annex, it's always the same cost. Kind of an interesting mechanic. In addition, the cards are multi-purpose. You can hire compatriots, you can kill people, or you can turn them into buildings. So all of those are an option in terms of that. So that's the other thing is we can kill a body. We talked about that. You can bury a corpse. And it also, by the way, costs you, when you bury them, you have to pay money to bury them as well, or pay cards to bury them as well. So that gives you all the options. And you get 2 of them on a turn, and that's really the challenge in this game. The challenge in this game is you only get 2 actions a turn. And that's going to become really important. So you can kill someone, you can recruit someone, you can bury someone, you can create an annex, or you can pass. And you can take 2 actions. Oh, and you can always, if you don't have any money and you want to recruit someone, you can recruit a peasant. It's a cost 0 card. So you always have an option to recruit people to use in later events. So everybody takes their turn and takes their 2 actions. And then the next thing you do is you look to see if anybody has any unburied bodies. And also you look to see if any policemen, and they're indicated by a little gun, are in any of the rooms. There are a fair number of various types of policemen and military people in the deck. If there are any policemen in any rooms and you have unburied bodies, you basically have to bribe the policeman to ignore the body. By the way, when we're getting to burying bodies, I told you had to bury bodies under annexes. One of the neat things about the mechanics is I can bury bodies in other people's annexes and split the money. You get the money when you bury the body. So that's the game. You go through the deck twice. So you go through the deck once, you kill a bunch of bodies, you let a bunch of people get free, because you're always going to have more people available than people who you kill. So you always get people that get away. Then you run through this deck a second time. They call it 2 seasons, 2 years. And when the game is over, person who gets the most francs wins. Now there's one other action I forgot to mention. It isn't on the player aid card. That's kind of a mistake, which is there's a cap on how much actual cash you can have on hand, 40 francs. If you start to approach 40 francs, you can take an action, go to the bank, turn in 10 francs for a little 10 franc check. This is basically a mechanic which prevents someone from running away with the game, because if they get close to 40 points, they then have to spend an action to turn that money in, because they can't go above 40 cash in their actual kind of till. So there's a mechanic built in to prevent runaway games, and it works really well, by the way. So that's kind of playing the game and how it works. So what do I think about this game? I will tell you that I personally really like the Bloody Inn. It's kind of one of my favorite go-to short card games. It plays relatively fast. It's probably, once people know how the rules play, I'd say it probably plays in a half an hour or less, depending upon how many players and stuff. And it's just plain fun. It is a bit of a brain burner. It's surprisingly how much of a brain burner it is, and it's because you have so few turns. It's got kind of, I think about Lords of Waterdeep, and I've always found with Lords of Waterdeep there are two things. One is I have not very many turns, particularly at the beginning, and second of all is because that's a worker placement game, it's a challenge to figure out, particularly if you're a later player. Being first is very important in Lords of Waterdeep, because if you have a large number of players, you don't get to choose your act. You don't have a lot of choices in terms of actions. Now, you don't have that problem here. There are always plenty of bodies to kill. There are always plenty of people to recruit. There are always plenty of things to do. Really, the challenge here is that you've got those two actions, and how do you make sure that you can kill a body and bury a body without the police finding out, or am I going to recruit police? There are just a lot of really brain-burning questions about how you want to structure it. It has a fair amount, I'm kind of surprised, it has a fair amount of replayability. It's not the kind of game where I'd go out and play 15, 20 times in a row, or every single week, but every month or so, this game comes off my shelf, and we're playing it with a group of friends. So I give it high on the replayability one. The components are nice and pretty. They work really well together. The box is pretty good. A little bit bigger than it probably needs to be, but that's okay. It didn't come with anything really good to store the components in, the little cardboard components. So I went out and bought one of those little dollar boxes. By the way, these are my favorite pens. Bought a dollar box to buy those little scoring chips. So I've got scoring chips. I've got 4 of them here now. Really like it. So I would definitely, now I'm going to warn everybody again, you have to be comfortable with the theme of this game. Random, indiscriminate killing. Now, the thing is, it's not like it's bloody like a Zombicide or something like that, or particular gory. It's just random killing. In fact, it's kind of funny. You get to the point where the killing and the burying of bodies is almost kind of perfunctory. And so be aware that for some people, kind of a problem. Certainly not what I would call a game for kids by any stretch of the imagination. Not because the rules aren't easy to learn. Their rules are easy to learn. I'm just thinking that, yeah, the subject matter, a little bit touchy for kids. So that's Bloody Inn. It is definitely on my yes for buying, so I hope you enjoy it.